So, welcome to our podcast, Leading Dialogues. In this age where there's so much disturbance and disagreement and confusion and conflict, the best way has always been to dialogue with people. And so I have invited Sister Breda along it's Sister Breda Ahearn, I think, isn't it? Yes. Uh,
Yes.
from what was the Tierman Center in Glendalough, but what is now the Glendalough Sanctuary. Of course, I have conducted a retreat there, and that's the kind of place it is, beautiful surrounding. But I'll ask Sister Breda to tell you a little bit more about that. Um, just a brief bio, and maybe you could correct me if I've left anything out, Breda. You're a member of the Sisters of the Cross and Passion, and
Correct. Yeah.
you are a retired primary school teacher, and you've been part of the Tierman team, which is now Glendalough Sanctuary, for the last 15 years. 2005, I think it
Well,
was.
20. Yeah, 2005 I came here.
Yes, some 20 years. Okay. So it's actually 20 years. Yes, yeah. Um, Tierman, I think, is the Old Irish word for sanctuary or refuge. And
Correct. Yeah.
I think it was founded by Father Michael Rogers. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how it was founded and who Michael Rogers is. Just to preempt that a little bit, my monastic colleague once visited you with a devotee and sat and had a cup of tea with Father Michael. I don't know if they had a cup of tea with yourself. You were probably around there at the time. And then, of course, when I did a retreat there last, he was in retirement, and I haven't had the good fortune to meet him, although I had wanted to. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about him and how it was found, the place was founded, and so on.
Yes, certainly. He's one of the priests from Kiltegan, the Missionaries for Africa. He himself is from East Clare, and he was always very proud of that. And he had a sporting interest always. He went to Africa after he was ordained, and after 20 years, he was called back to work on their leadership team. And at the end of that, which was 6 years, he decided no, he would not return to Africa, but he felt there was a greater need in Ireland to relook at our faith and the way we express it and to explore the Celtic roots that we have here. So he stayed, not knowing how or when or what to do, but he found his way to Glendalough. And the place where he eventually stayed was what was known as the old youth hostel in Glendalough, so people would know it. And the people who bought it, two brothers who bought it, the Carters, were doing it up and renovating it. So there was just one apartment finished, half finished. He took it and never moved from there. So in time, over 6 years, the other 4 apartments were finished. And as they were finished, he rented them. And initially he made the money from making clay figures and for going around and giving lectures and talks. So, and then as the places became used for residential retreats, they paid for themselves. So from about March to October every year, there would be a full group of 7 or 8 staying. So people came for the full week's retreat. And most of his retreat work was outdoors. So we'd have the morning meditation, he'd have something in the afternoon, and then the evening mass. And it would be very different. Like he would bring in the whole day into it, he'd bring nature into it. He was very creative. And he has a series of books that he's written. I could send them to you later, the titles later.
Yes, I have one of them.
But
yes,
you have one of them, yeah. And particularly the one, the Soul Journey, Glendalough Soul Journey, he goes through every part of Glendalough, all the monuments and the old ruins of churches, and explains what they might have been, and puts his own religious questions around the whole thing and questions for yourself. So they're really meditation guides for yourself as you walk around. So
That's
it was
wonderful.
really with a stroke 3 years ago that
Oh,
yes, he ended it, and he couldn't continue doing the steps.
right, right. How did you get involved in it, Sister Breda?
I would have known him beforehand. We did a course together some years before I ever came here. And then as I was retiring from Jobestown in West Talla, I would have been down here a few times. And the lady that was helping him couldn't continue because she had a forestry and she needed to continue working there, go back and assist her husband. So she said to me on retiring, she said, why don't you come here? Couldn't you come here? And that's how it started. So once I finished, I just came down that first July, and I've been here since.
Wonderful. And I understand that your role there as part of the team would be to assist in such things as retreats and stays and what have you. Is that correct?
Yes, that would have been correct. Yeah. We actually
Yes.
did something today, which we've always done on a Good Friday, and it was Michael instigated it. We do the Way of the Cross. We're just back from it, all along the Green Road, with some of his guidance and what I remembered from what we would have done, and also with Pascal and myself working out new things. And you feel you're doing it, and we're doing it because we always did it. But when you hear people today now talking about what it meant to them at the end, and like we started in torrential rain, but thank God the rain stopped. But it was just so encouraging to hear they were saying doing it outside and looking at the broken trees and of Good Friday to this. It was a meditation in itself. It was really a beautiful experience.
Good. And then how long would that, let's call it the Way of Cross pilgrimage, if you like, or meditation?
It
How?
took about two and a
Oh,
half hours
two and a
normally.
half hours. Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well,
Mm.
I guess that makes Holy Week, if you will, a very special thing. For those who don't know about Glendalough, it means two lakes, and is associated with the life of Saint Kevin. And Saint Kevin was a monastic hermit. You know, the idea of monastery means mono one, and I think he sought solitude in a cave and so on. But it ultimately became a big monastic center and remained there for many years with ups and downs. Is the brief kind of
Mm.
background to that. Wonderful. I would, by the way, encourage anybody to go to the Glendalough Sanctuary and also to take advantage of the beautiful scenery there. Whenever we have visitors from outside the country, I always try to take them to Glendalough, and I view it as a sacred place. It has that kind of atmosphere. I think you'd agree with me.
Mm. Yes, yes, definitely. Mm. Mm.
Now, you're a member of the Sisters of Cross and Passion, and I'd be interested to know. I don't know much about them except that they were founded by Elizabeth Prout, who was born in Shrewsbury, I think, in England. And
Mm.
Hope of the Cross to the Crucified of the World seems to be part of the mission statement. So I wonder if you
Mhm.
could say a little bit about that and how it relates to your work there at Glendalough. Firstly, when did you join?
Um,
When did you?
oh, longer than you'd think. I joined in '62.
Okay.
That's a good bit back, uh, and I wasn't a child. Um, so mainly because I went to boarding school in Kilcullen,
Mm,
and they ran that. My mother had a sister in the order. It always goes back to something like that. But I was very impressed with the sisters there. Like we had music and sport. They were really very high priorities within a boarding school, which was essential. Um, so and then while I was there, two sisters went out to spend many, many years in Africa. And just thinking about their life and the sacrifice that they were making at that stage. So really, when I finishing school, it was a very quick decision in the end that I joined. So 4 of us from our class joined, which was amazing. So the Elizabeth Perth is an English lady, which is unusual. So, but she was conscious, she's a convert, and she was very conscious of the poverty in Manchester at the time. And it was really the poverty of the Irish women who had gone over in the late 1800s and later, and their families, and they were working in the factories, and the children were as well. And no education, no household skills. And she just gathered women together to do something at night with them, teaching reading and teaching sewing and cooking. It was as simple as that. They needed skills. And it grew out of that and spread around Manchester. But in her lifetime, and she died in her mid-30s, so she died quite young. She already had been to Ireland canvassing, and Kilcullen was where she stopped, but she travelled around Ireland. And really, there were always far more from Ireland in the congregation than from England. So even though its origins were in Manchester, Sutton would have been the place where it eventually became the centre where the Passionist priests were as well.
Yes.
So that's where our spirituality is linked with theirs.
Yes.
The hope of the cross, that's where that comes in. When I came back to Ireland, I was about 20 years in England, and I came back to Ireland, and I ended up 20 years teaching in Jobestown, which is one of the big housing estates in southwest Dublin and Tala. And there was plenty of scope there for teaching in the school, but also visiting and really being kind of a granny to a lot of the mothers there.
I have been taking people, I think we did 2 retreats up in Crossgar in Northern Ireland.
Oh, yeah,
The Passionists there.
Mm.
And I think the beauty about there and the beauty about Glendalough is, and I think you say it on your website, that you welcome worldwide visitors from all faith traditions and also from none. So offering retreats and quiet time away from busy lives and schedules is on your website. So we always feel welcome amongst that kind of approach, But that's good. Easter.
You may know the retreat house up in Larne, the Dromalis. You might have been there.
Yes, I know it's in Crossgar. There's a name for it. I forget what it is, but they have quite a large acreage of land there. Yeah, that's in Northern Ireland. Yes,
that's right.
Easter. If you ask youngsters today what is Easter, they conjure up images of Easter eggs, Easter bunnies, etc., etc. And so I suppose I would want to ask you, in your opinion, has Easter been taken over by secular commercial interests or something like that? And not only in Ireland, but possibly in England and Europe as a whole, if you know anything about that. But let's stick to Ireland for the time being. Do you think that Easter has lost its significance?
Yes. I know in Jobestown, while the shops were closed, there was a time up to the 90s. Good Friday services would be packed. Once the shops opened and the pubs opened, it just changed completely. And the same now, down here with our services now. I'd say last night we had about a third of the church. But here in Lara, I joined the Lara Club, the Lara Choir, after Michael had left because I had more time and we didn't have mass here. So we have an excellent choir down there. And we had a big, long service last night. And tonight again for this, the Adoration of the Cross, we'll have it from about 7. It'll go on, I'm sure, until about 8 or 9. But there won't be many in the congregation as well. Easter Sunday is the big day.
What do you think the cause? I mean, it's a complex question, but do you have any ideas of what the possible cause is, and how any remedy could be made? And I'm speaking also across the faiths, because every uh, religion, if you would like to say, has got this diminishing of interest and numbers and so on.
Mm,
We give retreats also at Delgan Park, and as you know, that had
mhm,
a provision for something like 200 seminarians, but nothing of that kind, and the number of
mm,
vocations that you
mm.
call them seem to be very little. So I think there are a number of factors, so it's quite a complex question, but I don't know if you have any ideas about it.
Well, it is complex. Um, I think people are far more affluent now. I know there's poverty, but the affluence is people are very independent. They then their needs are met. They can meet a lot of their needs, so that crying out for help isn't the same, even though with some it's crucial. The other thing I think is the abuse that has been unearthed in in among people who are committed, say they're committed to helping others, and that's been a big factor. We've noticed that particularly in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And the commons, you don't hear them as much now because it's less, it's died on a bit. But there were about 10 years there, and if you mentioned the church, you just got eyes lifted, and um, yeah, it was. I found it very embarrassing at times, because everybody was labelled with the same brush. I found that very, very hard. While I was here in the retreat place, it wasn't so noticeable because people chose to come here and wanted time to be on their own, to meditate and to pray, and that, yeah. So it wouldn't you were kind of shielded from the general atmosphere that people were speaking out of. But also, I think retreat places and certainly people who've committed themselves are still seen as people that are there to listen. And, people and retreat places like this do attract a lot of people um, who need help and need to be listened to. Whether it works, I don't know.
Yes, I mean, today, if you take a survey about um, these questions, people are inclined to say, "No, I'm not religious, but I'm
Mm.
spiritual." And
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know exactly
yeah.
what they mean by that, but and I'm not sure if they know what they mean by that either. But there is
Mm.
that kind of inclination. But it strikes me that maybe the emphasis on the inner life is where things need to go, really.
Mm.
And I take these opportunities, such as, this Holy Week and so on and so forth, as one of those opportunities in Christianity anyway, but also across the board. I recently got a text from a Hindu lady who's written a poem about the crucifixion and so on, and writes a very moving personal account of what she feels about it. So like that. Um, the other thing I suppose is visitors to Glendalough in general, but visitors also to the sanctuary in particular. What would you want them to take away with them from their visit?
How important it is for them to give themselves time and become aware, first of all, who they are, and also aware of creation that they're part of. Because we do encourage a lot of walking and walking with people, and to notice and to see. And at the moment, the birds are just shouting out. Yeah, I was just saying this morning, have they got louder? um, or are they just so excited because spring has suddenly arrived?
Hmm.
Um, it would be that, but appreciation of themselves and the gifts that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they would be sort
All
of
good.
things we would expect.
Last year, I was invited to take a group of musicians from. It's a Wicklow Irish music kind of club. They stayed at the youth hostel
Mm-hmm.
there in Glendalough, and
Mm-hmm.
we did do a kind of mindful walk, which was interesting with a wide range of, I mean, age range of students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But it's remarkable how much they understood, how much they missed if they weren't observant, you know.
yeah, yeah,
So
so true.
it's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Um,
We have a day of mindfulness here every month that
yes,
people run it from. You probably know about that.
yes,
People who have been to Plum Village and come back, have been back and yeah,
yeah,
shared it with others. And there could be up to 20 at it
yeah,
for the
yeah.
day.
All good, all good. Um, as a former primary school teacher, do you think that uh, students' attitudes at that level have changed anyway? Do you think the educational system has changed for the better or the worse in any way? And when I ask this question, I'm kind of thinking as well of modern technology, you know, mobile phones and things like that. But I don't know what you feel about
Mm.
that.
Well, I'm out of school 20 years now, so it is hard to talk about it. But Michael started this where schools come in preparation for confirmation or during what's the fourth year in school, transition year.
Yes,
Schools avail the opportunity to come down here, particularly the confirmation group. It's like a retreat for their preparation of the confirmation. So it is a walking time with them
yes,
and pointing out, going through the gifts
yeah,
and working, using outside. Now, I find that with nature, that they know far more than I would have presumed the city children would have known. Now, some of them are from the city, but a lot of them would be from the country schools near us, and Bray and Greystones, but some of the smaller villages as well. And they are interested, in the beginning. And I would have been anxious then when someone came from Tala, and I thought, oh God, they won't be interested. But I think nature does something to them out
yes,
of the school,
yeah,
and just chatting and curious. Of course, they always find the deer and um, other the squirrels and things like that. And I suppose it is, and to be guided in that. And if the day is reasonably dry, I mean, it's a beautiful sight of nature.
mm,
Looking at the hills and you couldn't find anything more. So I suppose we're blessed in being able to do it that way.
that's wonderful, wonderful. Well, I don't know. Are there any questions you want to ask me? I caught you on the hop
No,
with
it's
that
just
one.
interesting that it's interesting that you're doing work like this and that you're going around asking individual people
Yes,
um, on topics that you were sharing it, because this is the medium in which people are using now.
yes,
And so congratulations. It's great that you've taken it on.
yeah,
Churches, I often at a church and I think that'll be like the ruins in Glendalough in 20 years' time or 40 yeyears' time.
yeah,
The buildings won't be that important,
yeah,
whereas in the past they were.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the nature is more important, really,
Yes,
and to
yes,
get in touch with it.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a great thing you're offering people.
And well, of course, the other thing is talking about um, uplifting people who are at their lowest ebb. I come from Zimbabwe, and there we had a person called John Bradburn, and if you happen to look up his name, find a very interesting life there. He worked amongst
Right.
lepers there. He had he was a member of the Third Order of St. Francis, and he's a martyr. He had three wishes. One was to be a martyr, and the other one was to work with lepers, which he did. and the other one was to be buried in the order of the friar habit, you know. And all three wishes
Mm.
were fulfilled. There is a cause for his sainthood at the moment. The Vatican have agreed
Mm.
to open the case, so we'll see what happens. But if you happen to do a research on that, I think you'll find it extremely
Yeah.
interesting. All good.
What nationality is he?
Well, he was born in England. He went out to Africa
Mm-hmm.
in the 1950s. He was also like Elizabeth Prout, he was an Anglican and converted to Catholicism. And
Mm.
he was, there's a book about him, which is called God's Vagabond, actually. So that would be a very
Okay.
interesting read. And the reason why
Mm.
I'm bringing it up is because I'm thinking of Kevin, Saint Kevin
All
there in
right.
Glendalough, you see, and the kind of life he would have led, and the work that you and your other sisters are doing in terms of improving people's lives, being compassionate listeners, those kinds of things, you know, and that kind of work.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for this broadcast. I
Well,
really
thank you for
appreciate it.
inviting
Thank
me.
you for your
Mm.
time and enjoy the rest of your Holy Week, you know, and particularly Easter, of course. All right. Thank you. And with that,
So
we'll
thank you. Thank you very much.